He is the biggest star on Gonzaga's roster, and today, Killian Tilley's parents stopped by the studio to talk with our Brenna Green about everything from his injuries to expectations for the season.
Weather's been rather nice recently with a stretch of 50-degree weather, but I am tracking a storm system that may make a quick swipe at the inland northwest.
And the results are in. Nadine Woodward is Spokane's next mayor. A ton of money was spent on this race, so tonight we examine how much money each candidate spent per vote they received. Nadine Woodward has been elected Spokane's next mayor. Cindy Wendell leads the race for council president, but that one's still too close to call at this hour. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Hanrahan. Whitney is off tonight. More than $2 million were spent on those two races alone. And tonight our political reporter Casey Decker did some math to figure out how much money was spent per vote. Casey.
Well, Mark, it's a lot, way more than has ever been spent per vote before, and has been the case all year. The difference maker is those independent expenditures, outside support that doesn't require a candidate's approval. First, the overall money spent. For Nadine Woodward, a little less than $715,000. For Ben Stuckert, roughly $540,000. For Cindy Wendell, nearly $600,000. For Brianne Beggs, just under $155,000. So how does that translate to per vote? Okay, so obviously because not every vote has been counted yet, we're going to have to do a little projecting. And it's by no means scientific, but if we look at the total ballots cast and the percentage each candidate has received so far, we can get a pretty good idea. At the current rate, Woodward will have spent $19.81 per vote, Stuckert $16.35. Now, that doesn't mean much without context, so let's look at the last three elections for mayor. As you can see, none of the last 6 candidates came close. In fact, the majority didn't surpass $10 per vote. But honestly, the really impressive numbers are for council president, specifically Cindy Wendell. At the current rate, she'll end up spending $17.01 per vote. That's more than 3 times the cost for a Beggs vote, $4.54. And it's way more than has ever been spent on that seat before. In fact, none of the last 6 candidates ever spent more than $4 a vote, and 3 of them didn't even reach $1 per vote. Yeah, so after all that money and all those ads we saw, Woodward has won. Stuckert conceded last night. Beggs is still trailing by a narrow margin. He hasn't conceded yet, though, so we're not yet calling that race for Wendell. Mark?
All right, Casey, thank you very much. Washington voters approved Initiative 976, which caps the cost of card tap fees at $30. So what now? Many of you want to know what it means and if transportation projects could take a hit. WashDOT says it's too soon to know how it'll impact drivers, but they do know it could lose about $451 million of their $6.7 billion biennium budget. In a statement to KREM 2, WashDOT said this is a significant loss to specific programs supported by our agency budget. Washington Senator Andy Billig says this outcome is going to be devastating.
It's just no easy way to cut $4 billion from the state's transportation budget without having pretty significant negative impacts.
Spokane Transit also weighed in, saying the initiative will have negative funding impacts on public transportation. They estimate about $31 million over the next 6 years. A spokesperson says it could affect key projects like the Central City Line, the Cheney Line, I-90 improvements, as well as paratransit and Vanpool funding. As for the man behind the initiative, Tim Eyman was asked about concerns he had about how this could impact projects.
I can absolutely guarantee the people of Spokane that Andy Billig wants to be reelected. Andy Billig is the most powerful person in Spokane in the legislature. He's in charge of the Senate. If he wants to, he can make sure that everything happens. If he doesn't want to, then you can vote somebody else in.
Governor Jay Inslee released a statement about 976 tonight, stating in part, in response to the will of the people, I've directed the Washington State Department of Transportation to postpone projects not yet underway. I've also asked other state agencies that receive transportation funding, including WSP and DOL, to defer non-essential spending as we review the impacts. Now to some developing news this evening. A Spokane police canine officer is apologizing for his behavior. Body camera footage released last week shows Officer Dan Lesser cursing and threatening a suspect during an arrest back in February. Lesser's statement reads in part, "My choice of language and words during the arrest eroded the community trust and support our department has worked so hard to earn and maintain," unquote. Lesser resigned from the canine unit shortly after that incident. He now works patrol. All right, to weather now. We had to wait until November for our nice fall weather, but we had another beautiful fall day today. Meteorologist Thomas Patrick standing by the Weather Center. And Thomas, will this nice weather stick around?
Yeah, it almost feels like we're getting a little bit greedy now with our 50-degree days, but I think this is the fall weather that we've all been asking for and certainly enjoying ever since the weekend. Today marks the 5th day in the 50s in Spokane. It was even in the 60s at Moses Lake and Yakima earlier today. That is pretty nice for November. We're on the warm side of a stationary front. That's the red and blue line that you see on your screen. It's differentiating where the relatively warm air is over Washington and Oregon versus the very cold air for Montana and portions of the northern plains. And that's where it's going to stay for the next few days, so you can expect more pleasant weather, at least during the afternoon. A little bit on the chilly side, especially for the morning hours with a low temperature of around 28 degrees. That's pretty normal for November standards, and the air stagnation advisory still remains in effect until the noon hour on Friday. But I'm tracking one small blip in the forecast for this weekend. More on that in just a few minutes.
Sounds good, Thomas. Thank you very much. We are learning new information about a school shooting threat that quickly led to an arrest. It happened in Coeur d'Alene on Monday night, and police say they were able to track down the student behind the threat because others spoke up. A parent told police they overheard students talking about a potential school shooting, so police interviewed those students, and that led them to the student they say originally made that threat. Police say this is what made the difference in this case compared to others.
It's usually a photo of a Snapchat or a screenshot of some social media. And at that time, it just becomes difficult to trace back as to where this originates or anything like that. In this particular situation, the student was named by the other students. That gives us an automatic lead into that.
Police charged a student at the time with threatening violence on school grounds.
We're volleyball players and we don't really understand basketball, but I think he's good.
Yeah, he's definitely good. That assessment coming from Killian Tilley's parents. Our Brenna Green now joining us. You sat down with a couple earlier today, Brenna.
Yeah, the Gonzaga forward in his final season with the Bulldogs, but he's currently on the bench after a minor knee surgery. I chatted with Killian's parents about an injury-filled last year and a half for the Frenchman and their hopes for the next year going forward.
He wants so bad to play, and we love to see him happy, so we want him to play as soon as possible. And good.
Good seems like an attainable goal for a player who's nominated for several National Player of the Year awards. However, the last year and a half has been tough for Killian Tilley, as he has suffered a hip injury, a foot injury, 2 ankle injuries, and now is recovering from a preventative knee surgery.
Yeah, sport is part, injury is part of being a high-level sportsman, so it happens, and it happens a little bit too much to Killian. It's just really bad luck. We feel sad for him when it happens and try not to talk too much about it and just keep the spirit up.
I'm proud how he fight to come back at his best level. And I'm really surprised with all the injuries he got last year. He was always able to come back and give what he can give, even if he was not 100%.
And right now, he's not at 100%. The knee surgery a few weeks ago definitely caught the duo by surprise.
We didn't expect it because we didn't talk about knees and feet and stuff anymore. And so all of a sudden, yeah, I need to get surgery in Chicago. It's not a big deal. It's like, oh my God, again? Will it stop? And he says, well, it's not a big deal. It's okay, we'll be good. But still, you know, team starts to play and he's out, like last year. And then that is, yeah, sad. It's just sad.
Especially because even during the summer in France, he was practicing hard. He was working hard with basketball, with physical practice. So, what happened again? So we were a little bit sad and surprised.
Regardless of his health, Tilley still is a leader on this team, being the squad's only 4-year player. They'll need his play, but they'll also need his voice.
We arrived Monday and went straight to practice, and then he's standing and yelling at the kids, and he's participating, and he's, yeah, He looks like the boss. It's really funny.
Leader means you need to be verbal. You have to speak. I hope he will do it.
I think he will do it.
And in terms of play on the court, his parents hope that speaks for itself.
Like free. It's his last year, so he should give everything he can give and just have fun on the court and be a leader and do as good as he can.
We have fun watching him play because it's so easy, and he has a kind of vision of the game that I haven't seen so much.
If the senior is able to be healthy this season, that vision and ease could lead him to the place many people think he belongs.
Oh, we would be very happy for him. So proud. And yeah, that's the ultimate thing for a basketball player. Everybody wants to go to the NBA. Hope the dream comes true.
The Tillies are going to be here through the North Dakota game next Tuesday, and then they're going to come back for senior night. And they always follow Tilly during the NCAA tournament as well.
Yeah, I just hope so much that he can stay healthy for himself and for the team, right?
Yeah, I mean, Gonzaga fans are just hoping that he catches a break, not only because they want him to play, but yeah, Killian definitely has a special place in the fan base's hearts.
By the way, Killian Tilly's 6'10", he's listed at. You can see where he gets his height from, right?
Yeah, they're tall. Yeah.
Thank you, Brenna. Well, still ahead, deep fake videos, they're a growing problem. Washington researchers, in fact, say they keep them up at night.
You do not need to be a software developer to use this kind of technology.
How deep fakes work and why they're raising the alarm, coming up next.